They will replace that engine free of charge, and then you've got a brand new engine. It's still a problem. It's a bad design, and you've got engines that are failing. Life's too short to drive boring cars. So we're immersed in this automotive evolution, or maybe even revolution. There's so many great cars, new levels of performance, great new styling, technology, and we can't forget about electrification just around the corner. There certainly seems to be a lot to choose from, but unfortunately what's going on in the market today sometimes forces people to make uneducated decisions on what the car they should be buying. And often enough, we get caught up in the emotional side of purchasing a car, and we quickly forget about what's underneath the hood and the problems that we could once experience after 3 or 4 years, and particularly once your warranty's gone. And with all of this said, of course, you want to make sure that you're buying a car that isn't going to be plagued with problems. Now, I've created other videos in the past with some of the worst engines on the market today, but guess what? There's a pile more that I missed on the last go around, and I can't help but share another 5 nasty engines and the vehicles you'll find them in. So hopefully you don't make some of the same mistakes that many other people have out there. Let's get into it now. So the first one is unfortunately one that really pains me to say it. Great little vents on the front and a beautiful flare on the front, and has a very strong rocker panel along the sides. Of course, we have a little rear wing. And when you look underneath, you'll see you've got quad exhaust tips, and it fires out that really odd engine exhaust note. Here's Subaru, and as I mentioned, one of the best all-wheel drive systems on the market today. These cars have a sunroof on top, beautiful rally blue paint all over this car, the latest LEDs from Subaru, and some amazing wheels, even with the big calipers on there. You've got keyless touch, and a great interior that's not over the top, however, it's very functional and well-wearing. So you get a 6-speed manual gearbox as well as a well-bolstered set of seats. And we have a beautiful little Subaru WRX STI parked behind me here, and it's up to 2018. There's actually been some lawsuits regarding the FA 2.0 and the J 2.5. 2.5 is the engine you'll find typically turbocharged in the STI like we have here. And it's really unfortunate because Subaru is often known for a high level of reliability. The all-wheel drive system as well is literally one of the most robust and perfected systems on the market today. But what in fact is the issue with these engines in the WRXs and the WRX STIs like we see right here? Well, first of all, great cars. That's why people buy them. You can see that great little intercooler tucked in there, and there's an STI. It almost sounds like a condition. You may want to check out your doctor to get some medication to take care of that. So what in fact is the problem with these engines? Well, as you know, these are a boxer, so they're a flat 4-cylinder engine. They're horizontally opposed. That in itself isn't the issue. What is the issue is the PCV that recirculates some of the emissions, puts it back into the intake. But the problem with that is it's malfunctioning, and you have a ringland in the pistons that wind up taking a hit due to detonation indirectly caused by a faulty PCV. And if ringlands start failing, then you actually have your piston rings start collapsing, breaking, splitting, and ultimately no compression and potentially catastrophic engine failure altogether. Now, there have been a lawsuit filed, and vehicles in as little as 80,000 miles are starting to see some major engine failures. And as a result, until these issues get sorted out, it's probably one of those engines you really want to stay away from. And behind us here, it pains me also to say, because the Volvo brand has always been notoriously known for being safe and reliable. But unfortunately, in 2013 to 2016, there's problems afflicting both the 4-cylinder 2-liter as well as the 2.5-liter 5-cylinder engine. So here we have a pair of beautiful white Volvos. Here we have an older generation, you can tell, because the headlights, old school, and the new ones have the LEDs, as well as a newer style grille. This one here is a 2019 and this one's not. And I'll be honest, Volvos have come a long way, not just from a safety standpoint, but as well from a styling perspective. Let's take a look and compare. Not only do the older ones have more engine issues than the newer ones, but the newer ones have really stepped up the game. Beautiful chrome trim, wonderful, very aggressive looking spoiler, beautiful wheels, and of course you get these nice little indentations, and the rocker panel is nicely trimmed in chrome. And as well, you have all kinds of keyless access there. And you'll notice it's got a nice flair to it. These vehicles definitely have a nice road presence. Personally, I've always enjoyed the look of these vertical lights that you'll find on this model, as well as you see on this version as well. Here we're looking at, from this Volvo, a T6. Wonderful little rear diffuser down here. And over here on this version, we have the dual exhaust tips. And this is a T6 as well. You can see there's subtle changes between the two, but clearly, this one here does away with some of the other little accents that you find on the fender wells. The rocker panels aren't as pronounced. The door handles are a little older school. And even the mirrors are nicer with these LED touches on there versus these ones here. Now they both have large sunroofs. And I would literally argue and say these Volvos now have brought up the quality of the interiors to anything that the Germans are putting out in BMW, Audi, or Benz. Well, the problem is in those few years that came out, there's been a lawsuit that alleges that there's heavy excessive oil consumption that not only leads to you having to add more oil, but it leads to further engine deterioration. They're saying all that excess oil consumption results in further contamination, fouling of plugs, reduced output power because the combustion chambers become coated and are fighting off combustion due to the coating of the oil inside. Now, it's really unfortunate because Volvo's a beautiful brand. They've really stepped up their game for styling and performance. And now who else uses a modern engine that's both turbocharged and supercharged as well as coupled up with electric drive? Only Volvo is the one that I'm aware of. So it's unfortunate, even though there's a lot of cars out there with oil consumption issues, for my own personal peace of mind, I'd personally stay away from those vintage years of the Volvo with the 2-liter and 2.5-liter 5-bangers. And the next one is this little warhorse right here. It looks like a silver bullet, doesn't it? Yeah, well, it's not quite the silver bullet now, is it? We're talking about the Ford Escape, but there's a whole bunch of other vehicles that use the same engine. It's actually the engine that's under the hood, 1.5-liter, 1.6-liter, and the 2-liter EcoBoost engines. They have a bunch of problems, and personally, I'd pass on that. The funny part is, a lot of people will say, well, yeah, fix that known issue, and then that engine's bulletproof. Well, that's the same as Kia and Hyundai saying, yeah, Kia and Hyundai will replace that engine free of charge, and then you've got a brand new engine. It's still a problem. It's a bad design and you've got engines that are failing. What's going on here are the heads are overheating. But before we get into the problem, let's take a quick look around so maybe you can identify with this vehicle and ask yourself, do you really need to have that or should I keep looking? Here we have the Ford. Pretty basic blasé design and a basic set of headlights. Cute little rims though, and that little accent there. Oh, look at that mirror 3-way and of course pretty standard handles. Whoa, look at those tail lights on this Escape. And it's a Ford and SE, and as I said, EcoBoost all-wheel drive. Not much going on the top, but you've got all this plastic shrouding to protect the bodywork from the rocks. But what about the inside? What does that look like? There. It's another one of those interiors that looks like a giant plastic recycling facility. But clearly it's a no-frills vehicle. You don't have sunroof or roof racks. Very basic vehicle. It's meant to be economical, but it's problematic if the engine goes boom on you. That can be an issue. And that's what's going on. Allegedly, there's a situation where coolant is leaking out of the engine. There's no sense of detection on that, and the heads are overheating, thus causing engine damage. Often it happens way before anybody even figures it out, and by the time it becomes obvious, it's too little too late. So if you've been shopping for an EcoBoost engine with a 1.5, 1.6, or a 2-liter, be sure to do your homework. And the next one on our list is what's under the hood of this little unit. Beautiful headlights. And of course, I love the front finishing on this. You've got these great little high gloss pieces. Wonderful wheels. And look at this little accent, how cute. And you've got more high gloss mirror action. Look at your controls right in the window there. So it allows the thieves to get their hand in there if your window's slightly ajar and open it and get in altogether. Here you've got keyless. Look, you got the cute little key symbol right there. And you've got the keyless access back here by Land Rover. Here you've got that nice little overhang, typical SUV by today's standards. Everything smaller typically now has these little overhangs, but they have these very intricate looking little taillights on this Sport HSE. Of course, by Land Rover. You got one pea shooter and a second pea shooter at the bottom. Sure is a cute looking little vehicle now, isn't it? Now, is the interior at least worth the hassle? I would say it's nothing too much to write home about. Very basic, very Spartan, and very boring. If you want to lease them and you really have to have one, go right ahead. Just know this, once warranty's up, whoa, guarantee's off. If you want to get rid of it at that time, make sure it's somebody that you don't really like, maybe a coworker, or possibly that clown that's been nagging you for years. That's probably somebody worth handing it over to. However, these have problems. But let's look. Land Rover, as we say, and it's a Discovery. Soon to be discovered that you have a head gasket issue. Well, if you scale this back another decade or so, and even including some of today's models, I've got some friends in the business that work on these regularly at third-party shops, and they share a lot of this information with me. Some of these issues go back to the new model versions like this, and some go back about 10 or 12 years. But either way, I'm going to give you a summary of all the issues. One being the rear hatch sometimes works, sometimes doesn't, locks up by itself. The rear air suspension sometimes settles out, and that's a problem on those models equipped. Transfer case oil leaks, engine oil leaks, heavy oil consumption, whether it's dripping on the ground or it's burning it internally. Coolant leaks seem to be very prevalent in a lot of these, through the throttle body, whether it's radiator fittings, HVAC issues, window regulators, check engine lights for O2 sensors. And a couple customers I've heard of saw the critically low oil level issue pop up regularly, so they clearly have some issue with oil consumption, coolant loss, and the like. So personally, if it were me, I'd steer clear from the Discovery. And so the next one is what we have behind here, and it really pains me to say this because it's a new, great attempt at another retro opportunity. Beautiful wheels. Of course, you got the big bend. Plastic handles that should be good for trail duty all the way across. You have this great looking design that wraps around, and a nice flip up rear hatch window there on this Bronco Sport by Ford. Look at those taillights, also look very interesting. And you gotta like all that plastic shrouding to protect it from all that rock and gravel that you might encounter. How about these great headlights? I love the front end of the new Bronco. Form follows function, but it does look great. LEDs, projectors, and you've got other great little accents like that, and a pretty hardy looking mirror. How about a roof rack that's great for hauling that clapped out, ripped up couch that your cousin used to leave in the basement? What's the inside look like? It's actually very Spartan, but really in the true spirit of off-roading. So sadly, what's the problem with these? Well, it's the 2.7 liter EcoBoost V6 engine under the hood of these if you go with the upgrade engine. Now apparently there's been some failures along the way, and actually one allegedly has failed in as little as 2,000 miles, clearly stating a little bit of a trend. And allegedly what's happening is a set of valves that were installed in the engine's head are the main contributing factor to some of these early failures. And for those that maybe don't know what a valve is, there's a valve to let in air and fuel, and there's another valve to let out the exhaust. So if those valves fail to do what they're doing, the vehicle just won't run or won't run properly. Even worse, if something breaks off in the combustion chamber, the piston, wham, can actually run into a valve and result in an absolute catastrophic failure. And for many people, it doesn't really matter. Warranty, sure, you've got it covered for 3 to 5 years. But what about those unlucky suckers that might have one of those that squeaked through, that wasn't updated or rectified? You could be the unfortunate recipient of an engine rebuild. The Ford Bronco. And with all of that said, I hope that you'll think twice before buying any of those. But as well, definitely going to want to check that video out. That's another list of some of the other worst engines on the market today you're definitely going to want to avoid. Hope that helps you out. Love to see you on the next one. Catch you real soon. Bye-bye.